Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT, every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make money on this wonderful internet. I'm your host, B-Check. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary. We are live on X. We are live on YouTube too, and we're going to get into everything that's been going on in the NFT and crypto market in the last 24 hours. And there's been some good news again. People are getting hopeful. People are feeling a bit happy, and we are happy to report that to you too. We're going to get into all of that good stuff in just a moment. But as always, just a reminder before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. We do not know anything for sure. Please proceed with caution. The modern market is exceptionally risky. So exceptionally risky. I'm stumbling over my words. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, how are you doing this Tuesday, the 19th of December?
GM, man, what an exciting last 24 hours. Also feeling way better health-wise, but it's been a very intense, very good start to the week, and we not only have to talk a lot about what was going on yesterday, we also have pretty significant news for today as well. It's going to be a good show. I'm hyped.
Do we? We do. Okay, cool.
We do.
That's fun. I'm not entirely sure what that might be, but that's a nice curveball that you've just thrown me right at the beginning. The
Typically, you do that, right? Typically,
I
you
know.
are the one who has a surprise for me and confuses me. So it's like, let's flip the psyop. Let's reverse it for once
Okay,
and
I
see
like
how
that.
it works out.
I can roll with that, but I actually had one to flip to you before you flipped to me, and the thing I was going to flip to you is that it seems to be that you said you're feeling better today, which is great to hear. But you said you were feeling bad yesterday, and my question to you is: the market is up today, and so are you feeling better because the market is up? And yesterday you were not feeling so good because the market was down. Is that as simple an explanation to your health as we can give?
That might have been the case like 4 years ago when volatility still had any kind of impact on my emotional or other kind of mental or physical health state, but that's definitely not the case in correlation any longer.
You say that, but I'm just analyzing the facts. And the facts appear to be you are happy and well on the day that we are up 4 to 5%. Yeah, and yesterday you seemed a little bit down. That's all I'm saying.
Interesting. Not
Just
not gonna accept that conclusion.
well, we're a factual show here. We're trying to report the facts as much as possible, and we'll let the audience reach their own conclusions. How about that? But interested to hear what you've got to tease later. Do you want to give any clues to what that could be?
Big numbers, interesting numbers to talk about.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I'm happy with that. I like big numbers. I like them ideally, not just big numbers, but if they're increasing in size, that would be my preference. So that's what we're looking for. Big numbers going up ideally. That's what we're going to talk about today, as well as all kinds of other stuff. Let's get into it. Starting with the news, as always, which is pinned up top in the snapshot. It goes out every single day in the mornings. And if you do find it to be valuable to you, please do give it a like because it takes a long time to do and it's got everything that we're going to discuss. So we're going to start with the price action and then get into the headlines. We have Bitcoin up 5% at 43.1K, got ETH up 4% at 2.2K, Solana up 10% at $76, and Ape up 3% at 1.7. We're going to get into why that could be in just a little bit. We've got NFT volume on ETH at 19.7 million in total, Blur at 13.1, OpenSea at 6.1. Remember, NFT volume on Solana is really crushing it at the moment, though, as well. In terms of the headlines, number one, BlackRock amends spot Bitcoin ETF application in good sign for approval. Legendary is going to explain a little bit what's going on there, why people are starting to get a little bit more hopeful. Number two, Adobe and Figma cancel pending merger. I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I think it's quite significant for people who are building businesses in an online way and in appealing to a broad audience around the world. I think it's got a chilling effect on mergers and companies building out in that way. And finally, Bodogos trade over $1.5 million volume as Solana NFTs continue to cook. Getting into the floor prices and some notable sales and loans. We have CryptoPunks down 1% at 53 ETH, Bored Apes down 1% at 26.2, Mutants flat at 5.1, DGods at 2.6, Captains at 4.4, down a couple of percent, Azuki's 5.6, down 3%, Penguins, the only ones really up at 9.7, up 5%, Moonbirds down 5% at 1.7, and Nouns at 30 ETH. So ETH NFT floors bleeding a little bit there. We had a Bodogos 1 of 1 selling for 559 SOL yesterday. That's $43,000. Absolutely epic for the Bodogos team. And number 2, Tyler Hobbs Fidenza selling for 48 ETH. That's $108,000. Those were a couple that I picked out. Legendary. That was the price action. Those are the headlines. Any numbers you really like the sound of there?
Definitely love to see the Bodogo selling for 43K, 559 SOL. I also started to watch a new kind of floor price that's difficult to track with on-chain data, which is the floor price for the Solana Saga phone, and to see how this one's moving. We haven't seen a single sale on eBay yesterday under 3K, and
Wow.
all the auctions that are running right now are running for like 4 to 5 more days. And the bids range between 2.2 to 2.5K. So the Solana Saga floor price is also moving up quite nicely. And I feel equally stressed, maybe even a bit more stressed compared to yesterday, because I still don't have the damn confirmation mail that my Saga phone is going to be the one which is going to be shipped and not canceled.
This is the stress now. This is the humongous stress. Now, just to clarify, I want to make sure you're in the same position as me. We both got a confirmation that we bought the phone, right? It's just we haven't received that second confirmation, like your phone is on its way. Is that where you are as well?
Exactly. I'm at the very same stage in the process. I ordered mine on Thursday, so it was well before it was sold out. But we should be good. That's what the Discord sentiment is. This is what the founders are saying. But I'm still worried. It's as you said it with NFTs. Like when you participate in the pre-sale, you're not feeling relieved because you have a whitelist. You only feel the relief and the excitement once the NFT is in your wallet. And the equivalent here, I only feel that relief once I hold the phone in my hand, and then I can decide if I want to unbox it or keep it.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is certainly quite stressful. Definitely want to hear just a second. We're going to stay on just the kind of numbers we're looking at the moment, the key projects we're kind of moved by at the moment. I want to hear from Sam, NFT Stats, in just a second to see what he's been looking at in terms of the data. Seen some interesting tweets from him recently. Maybe Shiv and Kodama would like to chime in as well if there's anything in particular that they've been looking at. But Legendary, just the first question before we go round the table a little bit. You mentioned the Solana phone. That's something that's occupied you in terms of an asset, the floor price that you've been checking out. What did you think of the Champions Tactics mint yesterday? That was something that minted out very rapidly. Do you want to give a little bit of a breakdown of what happened there and what you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Champions Tactics had the Warlords mint yesterday. 9.999K supply. It was a free mint. It is a gaming project by Ubisoft. It was in partnership with Animoca Brands / Mocaverse, who were handling a lot of the whitelisting. A lot was also minted throughout the whitelist period. I think it was like 8K or something that minted in the whitelist. Whitelist wasn't over allocated compared to Overworld, so you had enough, and yeah, you had enough time and opportunity to mint it. Even though it had to be postponed because demand crashed the website, and it did run up from a free mint to a 0.25 ETH floor. And I think, let me quickly check, it is still sitting there. Yeah.
What I find really interesting about this, thanks for that summary. I think that's really helpful to people get a quick understanding what's going on, is that these really huge, heavyweight Web2 gaming companies are coming in and often providing, I can't remember if Zynga was free as well, but it's quite cool how
was
they've
free as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see that that's been their approach. They've just come in and been like, look, we're just going to do this for free test the waters and just let the price appreciate over time. I have found that approach quite interesting to see that they haven't come in with a big swing to raise a huge amount of money immediately. But it does seem to be the case that these heavyweights are coming in, and it seems to be the case that the market is kind of respecting what they're doing in not a crazy way, because they haven't got to the outrageous valuations of something like Overworld, which minted the other day at 0.15 and has subsequently gone up to a more than 2 ETH floor now. But it's interesting to see that these big traditional gaming companies are coming in and just establishing a very comfortable foothold in that kind of. I know Zynga's collection was around 0.2 for a while and then has run up, but they're kind of establishing this foothold. But my key question for you before we go to maybe Sam and Shiv to see what they're looking at, what numbers they're liking at the moment, is what do you think the difference is between these heavyweights coming in and establishing a foothold in maybe the 0.2 to 0.5 region, and someone like Overworld coming in at 0.15 mint, expensive mint, and then just completely rocking and like going way, way more expensive immediately? What's the difference here? What should people be aware of?
So it's a very good question, and just to provide that extra bit of clarity, the Zynga mint, it's the Sugartown Auras, currently
That's
sitting at half an ETH floor. I think the key difference is that you have companies like Zynga, you have companies like Ubisoft, who are billion-dollar companies. They have the budgets to build games. It is their bread and butter, and they are not in the typical model of kind of needing to raise money, whether that in the case of Overworld, that's from VCs or from Binance Labs, and also have additional mint funds going. They can comfortably be having a free mint. And to them, it's also the more important thing, because they're not really Web3 native companies, right? They are entering a new space, entering a completely new audience. And yes, they have a massive track record of building games in Web2, but if they don't need the money, the easiest way for them to win over the Web3 community is to make a free mint, to have the budget to build the game. Sugartown released their second game for those who are staking their Sugartown Auras. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, and just demonstrating that they obviously can also build a Web3 game, similar to how they have been building Web2 games. And then if their free mint runs up from 0 to half an ETH, from 0 to a quarter of an ETH, doesn't really matter, because it already has won over the community just by the fact that it has established a solid floor price and that they already have been delivering on the gaming side of things.
Yeah, I like that explanation. I just want to provide one interesting conversation or insight from an interesting conversation I had with Jalil from Visualize Values, part of obviously the Jack Butcher ecosystem from Miami, where we were talking about. I always, whenever I talk with Jalil, it always ends up in some really interesting philosophical conversation. It was like a conversation about value and from where it derives. And we were kind of talking about like, is there an increase in value of an asset as a consequence of it rising from the bottom up? It's as almost as if the delta between zero, it's almost as if there is value in an asset when it has been through that journey from zero to achieve its price. And as you know, with OPEPN and checks, they were like, OPEPNs were free, checks were zero. And when an asset has had to battle through all of that selling in order to get to where it's got to, it's almost as if there's some kind of value that gets attributed to it as a consequence of that journey. And it's almost like a harder, more battle tested asset than one that tries to convince you this is worth 0.3 ETH at the beginning, and therefore you've got to do more selling. And it's a bit more of a mystery in that respect, because someone needs to try to convince you that it's definitely worth that at the beginning. Whereas at the beginning, they said with those assets, and as Zynga and Ubisoft are doing with these assets, just like, look, these are free. Let's just see where the market decides they're going to be. So there's something interesting in that, Legendary. Want to hear your reflection on that, and then throw to Sam to see what he's finding interesting in the market at the moment, and then Shiv and Kodama too.
No, absolutely. That's a very good point, and I think Jeremy, the founder of Overworld, did a very, very good job at that. At basically also before the mint in the space is saying, look, they settled for that 0.15 ETH price point in a different market. If you would look at the price now, in his opinion, that would be a 0.4 to 0.5 ETH. So already course, that's something that you want to say as a founder if you have the confidence in the product you're building, but it kind of sets another higher expectation and builds that basically, or helps building that momentum and helps building exactly what you're saying, that perspective that, hey, it is a 0.15 ETH, but actually its fair value is already higher than that. It should be a more expensive mint. It would have made it more expensive mint, and with all the hype it then runs. But there is, absolutely agree with you, a difference if something runs from a free mint and manages to establish itself as a collection, and something that's more built out with the mint price and then runs from that point. I do think that there is a difference between the two of those.
Yeah, really interesting, just kind of thought process, kind of breaking down what it means for something to be valuable. Glad to be able to share that. Want to throw to Sam now. Sam is, of course, Director of Research at Proof, always providing some of the best primary research and data on the timeline. Sam, welcome to the stage with us. What have you been finding interesting at the moment?
Well, just for background right now, I just got off a flight. So I've actually been traveling for 20 hours.
Oh,
LA
gosh.
to Hong Kong is a 16-hour flight. So I had my Wi-Fi on the computer on the flight. And I think I was in that like week, that part of the jet lag where your personality gets weird. I started tweeting a little bit more. So I don't have a whole lot of like news over the past 20 hours. I wasn't on your show yesterday, but I'm like, for me, like the hacks over the weekend remain like kind of an existential mindfuck of sorts. But I think what you guys are talking, it basically just says that, like, to me, it's like existential for the entire NFT movement if two extremely trusted platforms, like, through no signature of the user. And I think that that's where this is different. If you look at prior hacks, like because and I have never victim blamed once in my life, and I never will. But but at least the DGen kind of community could rally around the idea, oh, it was your fault, you clicked on a link and then signed a signature, a non-gas signature, so that's your fault. And everyone jumps on this, gaslighting, victim blaming bandwagon. But you can hardly even do that with what happened with Flooring Labs, because you can't do that with, people found a way to victim blame with NFT Trader, but these are like platforms that encourage people to put all their, like, basically advertise, give you airdrop if you do what they want. And all you did was said, okay, I'm going to go be part of this platform that seems well trusted. And, and then they had an error where, without even further signature, because of the authorization, like, you started losing assets while you were sleeping. People lost $6.5 million worth of assets while they were sleeping. Like, people keep saying the space is not ready for retail. I think the space is, like, to me, I was saying this space is not ready for us. So the weekend, like, that for me was a serious, part of it also, the reason it affected me a lot is because NFT Trader, like, I was in communities 2 years ago that just traded high-end apes back and forth, and all those guys were literally just living there, right? So, I personally traded a fair bit on NFT Trader. Luckily, I don't really own that many NFTs, and the ones I do have in my vault, but a lot of those guys, who I think are pretty sophisticated, pretty smart guys, did lose some very high-value stuff. Now, in the end here, everyone got their stuff back. It seems, not everyone, but a lot of people did. So that was also super interesting. But that, if you ask me what I'm thinking about, I think those things are a little bit on my mind still. As far as, I think the conversation you're having right now is super interesting, though. And it's that, I think a lot of these big gaming companies are basically saying, like, what do we care about 0.1 ETH? Or, to be fair, 10,000 times 0.1 ETH for a big company. And my guess is that it increases security risk. Risk of being labeled as security. That a big company with a legal team is just like, fuck that, that should be a free mint. I also think I think what Jaleel said was interesting, because obviously CryptoPunks, of course, are the elephant in the room on that. CryptoPunks were free, and Chromie Squiggles were extremely cheap. Bored Apes are 0.08 ETH. Fidenzas were minted very cheap. So I think to me the question is, what is the long-term narrative that develops? And there is interesting long-term narrative that develops with something like Checks, where it was like, oh, like Jack just did this for free in response to the controversy around Elon changing the meaning of the blue check. Like, and then suddenly it became more and more, and like that just creates narrative. I think if you look at other stuff, like NFT World was a free mint as well, and NFT World has 10% royalties, and the team ended up making a ton of money, and the NFTs now aren't worth as much as the money they made off royalties. Goblins was a free mint, and the NFT, but 7.5% royalty, and people ended up losing a lot of money on those. And I think it is risky sometimes when you get into this dialogue. Well, it was a free mint, but almost everybody who mints it for free no longer owns it. And the people who do own it are paying 7.5, 10% royalties, because the way, most free mints end up, it's just different ways of making money.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day. But you can only, so I've seen the other side of this as well, where there are free mints, and then the teams kind of use that as license going forward to have less responsibility. And it's not their fault what the market does, but when the royalties are high, they end up. And right now, it seems like there's a lot more movement, like with these projects, towards royalty enforcement being back again, which I overall think is a positive thing. But I don't know. Yeah, I think there's a lot of there. I think like there are a lot of different subtopics. That there are a lot of different subtypes happening. As far as also market perception, like maybe with someone who charges something, you're like, oh, this is a degen team that's out to make money and cares, and they're going to be involved. Whereas like a big corporate just does it for free. You get the sense they're not quite as invested. I think there are a lot of different variables around it, and I think it's certainly something I've thought a lot about, because a year ago I wrote a research report about royalties, and and that was where it really came out, that it was a lot of the free mints that ended up making the most off royalties, and it just creates a different dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. And I think that's also kind of going back to Overworld. One of the reasons why, or part of the reason why Overworld is being so hyped is, and Hunter had a very good long form post on that the NFTs will use the ERC 721C standard, which means they not only have enforced royalties, but they also have programmable royalties. And the speculation around the announcement that Jeremy still is to make is that they will have royalties or partial royalties for minters and holders, to kind of give some of the royalties back to people who either minted and hold it, and did hold on to their Incarnas, to make use of the ERC 721C, which is kind of fascinating to me, because royalties were like a very started out as a very simple concept. We just had them and they were great for artists. Then we had our like zero royalty phase, and now we are starting to get into a phase where they become a bit more complex. And with that ERC 721C standard, it can become programmable. You can have royalties only if you sell higher than what you bought it for. You can have rewards for minters, for holders, etc. And that will open up more complex and more dynamic royalty models, which will definitely be interesting to watch them unfold on the market.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think I took away two things from that. One is what you just said, Legendary. The other thing was the legal aspect. And I guess this is just something which is not one of the funnest or most interesting things to talk about, but I can see how these bigger companies just think putting it out for free might be easier from a legal perspective. But second, yeah, this hasn't got much attention on the timeline for sure, is that these blockbuster gaming projects have come in and done huge amounts of volume with royalties enforced for the first time. And my understanding is, and I'm pretty sure, Legendary, you can confirm this, that those are not tradable on Blur, from what I know. Or even if they are, they're royalty enforced. So just need to double check that. NFT Stat seems to be confirming. Is that correct, Sam?
Yeah, my sense is that they're simply not tradable on Blur, and I think that was more of a statement than anything. I mean, if you look at because like Captains, for example, Captains is the only project. It's like, and it's all because of time. It's because of timing, but they're the only project, and it's also because Ray had foresight. Like when Ray created the contract for Captains, he did not make it immutable, which allowed him to adjust the terms to block pseudo swap, or I don't know if you can block pseudo swap, but to do certain blocks that made Blur, made OpenSea say, okay, fine, we'll enforce royalties. And it was just in that perfect window where when OpenSea announced they aren't going to enforce royalties anymore, they said, but we will for a certain number of projects until February. And Captains was one of those. So Captains has not been very heavily airdrop farmed. They're still on Blur. And, but you don't have like the dynamic in the big NFTs right now, because I have been doing a lot of lending, so I'm kind of paying attention to this really closely. Like Bored Ape Yacht Club, Azuki, Mutant Ape Yacht Club, like Pudgy Penguins are now in the stage where it is just the entire game is airdrop farmers manipulating each other. That's all that's happening right now. Like there are hundreds of NFTs being dumped back and forth. Then they start going down in price, and someone who's long a bunch has to buy a bunch, and they bring a bunch of bidders up with them, and then they dump a ton of them. Like that is literally the entire market right now. And I don't even think that's hyperbole. Like I mean, because I'm I'm just watching it very closely and lending actually a lot of ETH against it, so I have to pay attention and care financially. But those markets have like just gone into this total state of being an entire cesspool, and I think like Captains has kind of gotten away from that. But it was interesting with Underworld. I think they were just saying like, yeah, Blur could have enforced their royalties. I think. I don't know. I need to figure that. I actually do not know that, so I don't want to say that. But perhaps Blur could have enforced that. So I can't tell if they have blocked Blur because they're saying like, we don't really like what the NFT market's become. We just don't want to be a part of this. And we kind of want to make a statement. Or if they did that because for whatever reason, the tech that Gabe created actually isn't that compatible with Blur. I don't know which one of those it is.
Yeah, definitely very interesting. I've just checked on Blur, and yes, like you can buy the Overworld NFTs on there, but it's like you're buying it from OpenSea on there. So you don't have that little Blur option. So they're definitely not kind of tradable via the Blur platform.
Then you can't list it. Then you can't
exactly. But yeah, very, very interesting to see that new dynamic enter the NFT market again via all of these gaming mints. I think that's something to really, really pay attention to, basically because it means that projects, once again, may be able to rely on that royalty stream once again, which they, for a long period of time, have not been able to rely on. So I think that is certainly an interesting change, and we're going to want to stay on top of that. I said we wanted to go around the table a little bit. I know Kadama is a lot more into gaming NFT, so I might go to him first, Shiv, and then want to hear from you too, Kadama. What are your thoughts on this gaming NFT conversation, why they're running, where the intrinsic value lies?
Hey guys, to be honest, I mainly agree. I think it's just a smart move to do it for free. In the end, if you get something for free, everybody is a winner. So there's just upside here, especially if you don't need the money. But can I quickly completely switch topic? Because in your daily headlines, you missed something that I think nobody has on their radar, which is Bakery Swap and a project called Bitcoin Cats, and they raised 106 million on an IDO launchpad sale, and nobody's talking about it. Apparently, the sale was 150x oversubscribed, and the excess funds will be refunded. But what the fuck is going on in this market? It's crazy. How can all of us? Maybe you all know about it, but I think maybe not. But apparently, projects called Bitcoin Cats can raise 100 million plus in an IDO on the launchpad on Binance Smart Chain nowadays.
That is absolutely nuts. You're correct to say that it's not in the snapshot pinned up top. You're also correct to say I didn't know about it before, but shout out to Crypto Mochus in the YouTube comments, who actually commented 15 minutes ago saying, did you see the Bitcoin Cats pre-sale raised $101 million? Was 150 times over allocated. Never heard of them before. It's a BRC20 coin for a game. And later there will be NFTs too. So that seems to be the amount of information we have at the moment. Thanks for raising it, Kadama. Shout out to Crypto Mochus as well, who's clearly on top of it. I don't know what's going on.
I had a call with a friend yesterday and was saying, on the one hand, you have that massive Ordinals hype that we don't really talk about on the show, but it's still outdoing everything else in terms of volume. And then you have the gaming narrative. And if someone brings those two together and goes like gaming, but Bitcoin, that will basically break the fundraising, break the timeline. And if you look at the Bitcoin Cats and you look at their bio, it says it is the #1 GameFi platform of the Bitcoin ecosystem. So exactly combining those two narratives.
Is it also the only gaming thing on the Bitcoin ecosystem?
No, it's not. There's a couple of game studios that build on Bitcoin or use that narrative at least.
Just checking, because I saw something on Celeste the other day being like, this is the first inscription on Celeste. Like basically every narrative that's playing out on every other chain at the moment is just being replicated immediately somewhere else. And then everyone is coalescing around it and trying to ape in. So, as you say, Kadama, crazy numbers. Got to have to be aware of that and check into it. But as Legendary said, it's like different narratives converging to the perfect mixture for people for them to want to throw money at it. So definitely paying attention. and seeing where that goes. Want to welcome Shiv to the stage, to community team at Lil Pudgy's, host of the Playbook and the Whale Show. Shiv, great to have you with us again. What have you been looking at? Do you want to come in on this gaming conversation, or have you been looking at something else at the moment?
I think oh, pardon me. Everyone has their eyes on gaming, especially with a couple minutes we have today, and of course, Champion Tactics yesterday, and of course, Overworld the previous week, which really brought the bull run vibes, where instant sellout, people euphoric on the timeline, but equally flooding as much. It was definitely something that we witnessed a lot in 2021, and it'll definitely not be the last moving into 2024. I know everyone has their eyes on gaming, including me, but I don't know if you guys have been keeping your eyes on ordinals. They've been flying across the roof as well. Yesterday, well, early in the morning, Sparks airdropped the Minters their ordinal on uncommon stats, and it's sitting around 0.4 BTC. The last time I checked, it was at 1 BTC when it got airdropped.
Wow.
And apparently it's only going to go higher. It's only 100 supply. OMB's around 0.53 as well. And I don't think they're going to slow down. I do think these ordinals are going to fly as well, looking into 2024. So I do have my eyes on them. I know not a lot of people are looking at them, but the ordinal size is definitely cooking. Also, Barcana is looking to move into ordinals as well.
I saw that. Yeah, very, very interesting. Nice point out there. And thanks for the extra information on just the ordinal side. We keep saying here, it's not that we don't want to look at it. It's just we can't quite, we don't quite have the capacity to look at all of the things popping off at the exact same time. So it's super helpful to hear from you what's going on there. Good point about the Farcana thing. Shiv, am I right in thinking they're going to do 700 on Polygon and then 300 on Bitcoin? And that's just, again, another very highly anticipated gaming mint.
It's minting today,
yeah,
right?
333 on Bitcoin.
Got it.
It's minting today. I'm pretty sure in like 30 minutes. So
very interesting.
No, in an hour. Sorry, in an hour. Yeah.
Okay, so those are going to go high, I think, because there's so few of them. One reflection, I want to tie this conversation up and move into the actual headlines to get people up to speed with what's actually been going on in the last 24 hours, more concretely with what's in the headlines today. But one of the things I was thinking, Legendary, and would be interested to hear anyone else's thought on this, is that to the extent that these NFTs are altcoins with pictures, right? If we're going to go down that line of thinking about them as altcoins with pictures, we've probably got, we were talking yesterday, I think, about that certain NFTs being like the majors. Do you think it would be wise in any way to think like a lot of these gaming NFTs as alt NFTs? Like they're all alts and you can trade your alts and they're going to go up a lot. They're going to be way more volatile, at least at the beginning. Is there a framework where you'd be thinking about this, where like, look, I've got my alts, which are these gaming NFTs, which is clearly the hot narrative right now, and they're going to moon. Should you be switching them into your majors? Like if there's one new hot gaming NFT that's going to go from nothing to 1 ETH or 2 ETH, should you be like, oh, well, hang on a second, a captain's is 4 ETH. This is now worth 2 ETH. I should be switching into a captain, which is a major. This is less volatile, more well-known. Is there anything to that framework? It's just something I was playing around with in my mind in the last 24 hours.
I mean, it's a complex question, and we kind of evolved that, altcoin with picture NFT theory a bit yesterday, where we said the gaming NFTs are IDO claims or IDO raffle boxes, because you often don't even know the amount of tokens that you will get from holding certain gaming NFTs. And then you also have sometimes tax implications on top of that. But all that aside, to perfectly answer your question, I think at one point it is definitely worth it to take profits on those. That gaming narrative won't be running forever. And whether you wait for the token drop, whether you try to sell before that, there's just, again, we had that list by Abi with 15 gaming tokens coming in the very, very near future. And there's going to be more because more mints are coming. So at one point, taking profits there is definitely well advised, but also know that Kodama has a very, very strong opinion on that, because we very recently spoke about the exactly the same question.
Yeah, let's hear it. Kodama, come in on that thought there. What do you think of that framework I just proposed?
Usually, I'm 100% your opinion. The thing is, most of these, in my humble opinion, most of these gaming NFTs and tokens have not much to do with gaming yet, because they all, give us a promise. They might deliver, they might not deliver. Startups, let's see them as traditional startups. Most of them will fail, which is completely fine, but you have to be aware of it. So if you do 10, I know that 100x, it's a nice dream. Everybody wants to have 100x once in his lifetime or in his crypto lifetime, but don't always chase it. Just take profits, because in the end, you have to be honest with yourself. You're investing in these projects because you most likely want to make profit, because we can play 20 games at the same time, because then first we will play 5 minutes of that game every day and we will be shit. So as a gamer, we all know that we most of the time just play 1 or 2 games. So yeah, I mean, for me, I'm honest. I mostly buy these to make more Ethereum. I'm not shifting into blue chip NFTs. I see it's a strategy that if you once have it in your mind, it's disgusting, because then you just want to buy unlimited NFTs. But I see NFTs sometimes as a form to go long Ethereum, because the goal is if I double, triple, whatever my Ethereum, and then in the long run Ethereum doubles as well, then it's a 4, 5, 10x whatsoever. And that's my personal goal. So for me, it's NFTs is to get more Ethereum, and back then it's the same as in 2017 you bought shit coins or altcoins to get more Bitcoin. So that's for me the strategy and narrative. Obviously, some games I will hold longer because I actually want to play them, like Treeverse, for example.
Yeah, I don't know if you just finished there, but I like all of that thinking, Kodama. One of my favorite types of opinions is your humble opinion. I'd like to hear one of your unhumble opinions at some point in time too. I think that would be pretty spicy when we get to one of those. But I like the thinking, and ultimately, it's one of the things that people forget sometimes, right? They forget that their main objective is to accumulate more ETH. Did you want to come back on that, Kodama?
No. I said everything I wanted. Give the word to someone else. Would love to hear more opinions on that.
All good. Okay, so I think we've probably discussed the gaming meta sufficiently at the moment. There's all kinds of stuff going on there. Really, really interesting discussion there on value and what the point of trading some of those assets are at the moment. Before we get into the actual headlines and discuss probably the biggest one, which Legendary is going to break down, which is the Blackrock news in just a moment. Legendary, I know you wanted to touch on the Eigenlayer news, which is one of the things certainly less reported in the last 24 hours, because it's probably a little bit more complicated than other things. So do you want to talk about what's going on with the Eigenlayer restaking?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's actually the biggest number to touch on. Eigenlayer increased. Eigenlayer is a restaking protocol, so very easily explained, allows you to stake your already staked ETH again, so to restake it. And they had a very, very high demand. They were at capacity and increased their caps, so basically increased the amount of ETH or staked ETH that they allowed to be restaked. And people were rushing to get their money in. Yesterday, Gwei shot up to 300. That was way higher than the other mints that were going on yesterday. Depositing was a couple $100 to just do the transaction, and now they have a TVL of 334k ETH, 750 mil, still increasing until it's going to be closed when it reaches 500k ETH locked into protocol. People are doing that because, well, A, it is a good APY. B, they are speculating that these Eigenlayer points will be a very, very juicy airdrop. And also the company received significant funding. They raised end of March this year, they raised the Series A 50 mil at a 500 mil valuation, led by Blockchain Capital, Coinbase Ventures, and Polychain Capital. So pretty big players in there. and just reminded me of the Blast situation, the amount of ETH sitting on the sidelines and waiting to be deployed into something like Blast, into something like Eigenlayer, is completely crazy. Is obviously way, way bigger. We talk a lot about NFTs, but that's still a small subset in the whole crypto ecosystem. And just the demand yesterday to restake your ETH with Eigenlayer was insane to see.
Yeah, really, really good point. As you say, it feels like the shackles are off, and for a long period of time, people did not want to deploy their capital, but that has clearly, something has shifted in the last month or so. People really demonstrated how much kind of idle capital there was with Blast, where I believe from my last check, it was approaching $800 million now in Blast, which is absolutely insane. And as you say, Eigenlayer has a huge, huge amount of ETH locked in there too. Many people are doing that with the anticipation of an airdrop. And there's kind of the opportunity for double airdrops because there are certain staking, liquid staking coins like Swell, for example, who have Sweeth instead of staked ETH, which is Lido. This is Swell, and they have their own points program. So if you stake with them, you're kind of accumulating points for a potential token with them. Then you restake on Eigenlayer, and you get a potential airdrop with them. I mean, when you talk about it like that, it does starts to enter the Ponzi territory. It's just like, hang on a sec. So you stake your ETH, then you restake your ETH, and you get points for staking, you get points for this, you get points for that. Hopefully all that stuff is safe. Obviously it's been backed by a lot of big people, but you do have to take on some contract risk every time you do these types of things. So just bear that in mind if you do ever consider it. Legendary, any final reflections on that? Go on.
There's actually triple dipping going on because you also had protocols that allowed you to deposit on Eigenlayer on your behalf. So you basically could take, as you said, other liquid staking derivatives that don't have a token yet, deposit via a protocol that deposits on your behalf on Eigenlayer, and kind of farm 3 airdrops at the same time. And it kind of shows exactly what NFTs said before. Like, we are in this airdrop craze, and in this points, everything is about collecting points. You just have a service that deposits money on your behalf and offers you an airdrop for that, and also gives you the other airdrop that you would be earning by that, which is kind of hilarious, but also a bit worrying to some extent.
I mean, I don't know how many more levels in the inception we can go. Like 3 seems to be the maximum. You can't really quadruple. I mean, I would hope that there's not a 4th one, but it feels like it's getting towards the end of that. I kind of hope, just because it seems impractical to go any deeper down the rabbit hole. But that was a very interesting thing that happened yesterday. Definitely wanted to bring that to people's attention because I know we're in the NFT market a lot, and that's our main focus on the show, but there's a lot of cool infrastructure stuff going on ETH, and that is definitely one of the most significant things taking place. So wanted to bring that to you. Legendary, before we get into the main headline, I might as well, because we're getting towards only 12 minutes left of the show, I'll do the Web3 roundup and the Creator Corner news to get people up to speed with what else has been happening in the last 24 hours. Then we will get to the final headline. So as always, this is coming from the snapshot, which is pinned up top to get you up to speed with what else has been happening in the last 24 hours. We have Free Lunch Capital begins the compensation for those who lost assets in Flooring Protocol. He said that the way that they will do that is that for every NFT lost in the exploit, they can compensate with their specific tokens, which can be used to claim a random NFT or bid on any one out of the 108 in the vault, because it's not possible for them to literally replace one-to-one with the NFT that you may have specifically put into the vault. So that's one of the interesting intricacies of that particular protocol. Number 2, as we talked about already, Ubisoft champions tactics, free mint surges to a 0.25 ETH floor. Overworld, which we've been speaking about, partners with Horizon Labs, the leading token advisory company behind ApeCoin. So clearly that is the direction that company is going in. I think we all knew that already. But good to see that official. Zagabond reported to announce Azuki to build out gaming team. I just put reported in there because I tried to find a source for that and I couldn't see anything on his official Twitter, but that was from Pluid, which is Lupify's company. So I'm sure there was a proper source, but just want to clarify that. moving into the creator corner, community notes on X upgraded to appear over 1 hour faster. So if you are writing anything crazy, expect to be pulled up on that a bit quicker. Top X copy collectors create the Doomed DAO to collaborate to acquire and educate on X copies works. That's pretty cool to see some of the real biggest X copy collectors come together in order to push the work forward. I think that's pretty big news. And then finally, SocialFi Friendtech Apps announces V2 in spring 2024. And Sam rightfully pointed out that total buy volume was just 28 ETH yesterday at an all-time low. It compares with a peak of 7,231 ETH just 3 months ago. Certainly lost a lot of attention on Friendtech. I don't really know where I stand on it at the moment. I'm not sure that it can get the attention back, but people are obviously interested for the potential airdrop. So we have to see what happens there. Legendary, that is the Web3 roundup and the news from the creator corner. Do you want to take us into probably the main news for the day, which caused the positive price action in crypto, which is the Bitcoin ETF news?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like the crypto market once more believes even stronger that the ETFs are going to be approved. And the centerpiece of that news is BlackRock revising their spot Bitcoin ETF proposal. They basically made a concession to the SEC when it comes to the redemption mechanism. What does it mean? If you look at ETFs, they know two types of redemption mechanisms. One is in kind, one is in cash. That means an in-kind redemption would mean that basically you can redeem your ETF shares directly for the Bitcoin that they are representing. That's a model that the SEC didn't really like. Their preferred model always has been to have a cash redemption, which means if you redeem a share or ETF shares that basically represent, say, the value of one Bitcoin, you wouldn't get one BTC, but instead you would get the 43K, so basically the dollar equivalent in USD of the price of one BTC at the time of your redemption. And this is a concession that BlackRock has made when they filed they updated the revised ETF proposal. And obviously that did contribute to driving speculation that it might be approved earlier. And this is basically one of the last concessions that they have to make. And it seems like many are speculating that we could see the first ones to be approved in even early January.
Really nice summary of the kind of technicalities. One of the other indicators I wonder if you saw that might suggest that we're moving closer to approval. There were two things. One thing you mentioned about Van Eck, one of the applications they made. I want to give you a chance to share that. The second thing I wanted to see if you had seen was this advertisement by, who was it? I can't remember the name at the moment. I don't know if you saw it on the timeline yesterday, but it was really shilling the ETF. And if anyone knows what I'm talking about, just put it in the comments. Maybe Legendary can review at the same time. It's like a really prominent fund talking about BTC as a good investment. And it's already started. It got published on TV in the US. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. If someone does, put it in the comments, please. Legendary, do you know what I'm talking about? I'm going to have a look.
Not entirely certain about that, but on the Van Eck, however, the fun story or the fun thing is that they went for HODL as the ticker for the Bitcoin ETF, which is, on the one hand, is quite fun. On the other hand, it's also like a smart move. I think, where is it? Eric Balkunas, the senior ETF analyst at Bloomberg, also very, very prominently on X, commented on that it is marketing-wise nice compared to like the more boomery choices by BlackRock that just reflect the underlying asset. It's also nice that the typical market participant doesn't have a clue what the HODL ETF represents. So if Bitcoin goes down, it wouldn't draw that much negative attention. And also Van Eck clearly liked their name because they also made a post about that. I think it was a bit more than 10 days ago, saying, I'm quoting there, my Bitcoin ETF will bring all the baby boomers to the yard if approved. So they definitely do like their own naming choice. And I think it's a smart play to go for that meme, because ultimately the ETFs also probably appeal to some of the like traditional crypto participants or traders, because it is probably easier, and not easier, it's cheaper to trade them than, for example, to trade on Coinbase. And a lot of trading still happens obviously on centralized exchanges.
Yeah.
So if you have 3 very comparable ETFs with a very low TR, with a very low cost rate, you might be inclined to take the one that has the, you know, culturally in tune hodl ticker.
Yeah, very smart. It's very smart. Why not? Why not? Might as well do the funner ticker rather than a less fun ticker. I did find the video that seems to be going out in the US, I believe. I think Funky has his hand raised. Maybe he can speak to it instead of me. Just a quick one for me. It's Bitwise, the company which has put this video out. And they asked the question, what is interesting? And the guy just says, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is interesting. Bitwise is a trusted partner to individuals, financial advisors, and family offices navigating cryptocurrency, based out of San Francisco. Got the video up on YouTube, got the account up on YouTube if you wanted to see. But yeah, that's the key information. Funky, I wonder if you wanted to come in on that.
GMB check. Yes, actually, I was wondering if it was the Bitwise video that you were referencing. Sorry, hope you guys can hear me. I'm in the car.
Yep, we got
you. Maybe you don't know, because this was such a huge cultural meme in the US. I don't know how much it was played overseas, but that's quote unquote the most interesting man in the world. It was a long running campaign for Dos Equis. And so he's like, I don't know if I can drink beer, but when I do, it's Dos Equis, you know? And so like, that's why he says it's interesting. They're playing on the old riff of the previous cultural meme of him being the most interesting man in the world. But yeah, I'm super excited for the ETF. I think that there's going to be a lot of participation. I saw a great take on an ETH ETF, said, you know, the best thing about it is you can't spend it on NFTs, which I would completely concur. And yeah, it's a great time in the market, a lot of good things happening. And I also wanted to say real quick, these beats that you're playing at the beginning of the show, somebody absolutely has to write lyrics and create a modern market like hip hop jingle for the start of the show. It would be amazing.
Legendary said he's on it. He said he's going to do it. It's going to be
yeah, but it can't be him like yelling in, you know, German and
no, it is
German.
Crazy words that
it's going to be German and French. That's what it's going to be. We have to be inclusive.
Why did we add French to that?
I don't know. I just added French to it to add it, make it harder for you. Yeah, we're going to do that. It's on the to-do list. We've got a few other actual business needs to deal with first, but the wrap at the start of the show is part of the content strategy, obviously, because we're a content first company. Yeah, so really interesting stuff. I was aware of this interesting man in the world, most interesting man in the world meme, but I just couldn't quite place it. I didn't know the perfect story behind it. So that is interesting to hear. But I think the key takeaway for me, Legendary, want to come to you with a final reflection on this as we bring the show to a close, is it seems like they're just going to start advertising already. Like they're ready for it. They're just putting it into people's brains. And one of the takes I saw on X was, you know, we're about to witness, as we move into the new year, one of the most almighty advertising campaigns that we've ever seen. Because if you think about it, for the average person still right now, everything that they have been told up to this point is that crypto is scary, it is risky, you should not buy it, you should not get involved with it. Even when the people who do try to get involved in it, they're told by their banks. This literally happens in the UK. You try to move your money into Coinbase and the bank will ring you on the phone, speak to you and say, are you sure? You do know that crypto is risky. Like they're literally talking to you on the phone, asking you, are you sure you want to do that? Like, make sure, are you sure? Are you sure? And still sometimes it doesn't go through because they're so annoying about it. So that's been people's experience so far. It's going to take an almighty effort from people like the most interesting man in the world and others to get people to come into it. But I don't think anything is impossible when it comes to media. That's why content is usually so powerful, and especially using influential people. That's my final reflection on that. Seems pretty bullish from my perspective, although we cannot confirm when exactly that confirmation will go through. Legendary, close us out. What's your take on that particular part of news?
Two final thoughts on that. First one, and this is a shout out to Steve, which is kind of an inception because it's a shout out by Steve shouting out NFT stats in the comments and his write up over the weekend.
Nice.
Where Sam had his most viral posts talking about the top tier apes that got stolen in the hack, reached almost 7 million views. And then he went on to explain that basically there is enough liquidity for apes. You can instantly sell your ape for 60K. And Sam said that people basically were acting like if he is talking crazy nonsense and being completely delusional, having no idea about what's going on.
Yeah.
On that side. On another note, it's going to be interesting for centralized exchanges because Coinbase has fees up to 0.6%. Coinbase does a lot of its revenue in transaction fees. They did 2.4 billion transaction fees in 2022 from both institutional and retail investors. And it's going to be challenging for them if now you can trade a Bitcoin ETF for a fraction of that cost. So this is part of our industry. The centralized exchanges will be under pressure if their business model mostly was relying on transaction fees.
Interesting point.
Obviously, there's more than Bitcoin and more than ETH, but it's definitely going to be noticeable for them.
Yeah, interesting point. I hadn't thought about that kind of second order effect from what the ETFs might have. Very interesting thoughts. Top discussion as always, ladies and gentlemen. So glad that you joined us for the conversation today. As always, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. GMT. We will be back discussing all things to do with NFT, market, crypto, Solana, phones, ETFs tomorrow. As always, have a wonderful day. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.